Hello there, it's Carrie Rhodes here. Welcome back to Trinity Stamps YouTube channel. Today I am going to be making some checkered Easter cards, and I'm going to be incorporating stamping into that. So this is the checkered stencil. It's a 6x6 stencil, and it is a single stencil. And then we have add-ons in the Trinity Stamp shop that you can stencil in the openings. But I wanted to add some stamping in the openings, so that's what I'm doing today. So I started out doing one layer of the stencil in parrot ink, and then I'm rotating it and putting a little bit lighter green, and that is bamboo ink. And I'm using the Trinity Stamps blending brushes because they're so good. They're a little domed and they have a nice handle to hold on to. So there is my finished background right there. So very cool. I decided to spritz my background, my stencil, and press some paper on it and see what I got. So there's the background there. I might have to figure out how to incorporate that, how to work that into a card someday. So this is the EGGstra stamp set. There are little eggs in the set. Like there's a larger one and then a smaller one, and there's a solid and an outline. So I'm going to use the smaller eggs in the solid as you see here. I'm stamping them with honeysuckle ink from Concord and Ninth, and I am filling in each of those openings, and I'm stamping the egg the same direction every time. So the skinnier part of the egg is pointed up. And then I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to take the outline image of the egg and use a darker shade of ink and go right over the top. Now I don't get this perfectly lined up every time, and I kind of don't mind that. It doesn't bother me if it's off a little bit. I'm fine with that. So here is my checkered background with the addition of stamping. Now I didn't stamp the extra step in the middle because that's going to be covered up, but I am going to use a sentiment also in this set that says "You're extra special." So I'm stamping it with that honeysuckle ink first, and then I'm going to do a little bit of ombre. So first I'm going to stamp this 2 times just to get it nice and saturated, but then I'm going to bring in my darker ink and ink up just the bottom half of the word extra. Now this stamp is nice and big, and the words on the rubber are separated enough that you can easily do this without masking off an image. I know it's not rubber, it's clear stamp. Anyway, let's move on to stamping out the eggs. So I wanted 3 eggs that I could die cut out and use on my card. There is a die for everything in this stamp set, including the eggs, and a die for each of the words. So I can reconfigure the arrangement of the sentiment however I like. So I'm going to stamp this out again in green using that same peacock ink that I used for my background. And then when I die cut this out, I can have my extra special word that I did kind of an ombre effect on. And then I'm going to use the other words in green. So it'll be nice and fun and really go with my background of my card. And I can die cut out just what I need, but then also I can save the pieces that I didn't use and have a sentiment ready to go for another card. And there is dies also to cut out 2 large eggs and the 2 small eggs. So there we have it. They're ready to go onto my card. I also wanted to do a couple big eggs on this card. So I'm using the largest egg here. There's a frame and then a large egg that goes behind that frame. This is the bunny egg die set, but I also can use it just for the eggs, right? So before I die cut them, I want to go ahead and make a splattery background. So I'm going to use the colors from my checkered background, that peacock ink and the honeysuckle ink, and just make a nice splattery panel that I can then use to die cut those eggs. So I'm doing the green first, and then I let that dry for a minute, and I will also do the honeysuckle. So first, when I'm splattering, I'm just putting my ink pad right onto this window sheet. It's a really thick piece of plastic I got from some packaging, and then dragging that down the edge of my window sheet with a scraggly brush. And then I add even more water and it makes it really loose, and I get a ton of it on my brush. And then when I splatter, I can get some bigger splatters. So I wanted both, the tiny little ones and the bigger ones. If there's a little shimmer on this, that's because I use that paintbrush to splatter shimmer a lot too. Okay, so now I can lay that egg die out right where I want it and die cut out the shapes. And I decided to do 2 on this card, so there you have it. Very cute splattered eggs, and then those will be ready to go on the card. I laid them down where I wanted them and overlapped them a little, and then set to gluing them together. just like that. Now, when I pick this up, you might see this background looks like something happened to it. Yeah, because I originally made this background for another card and it was not cute. But I decided to just use the background and try to create something that looked good on top of it. And the thing that I made on top of that card, I took that off and made another card with that. So I was being very resourceful. Nothing got thrown out. So I arranged my words there in kind of a staggered look, and I really love that I can do that with that sentiment. And then I'm adding on those little extra eggs, the pink ones with the black outline, so they stand out a little bit more, and they're the larger size than the eggs I used on my background. Next, I am die cutting the edge of this vellum with this tiny scalloped die. This is actually for the die set that we have that creates a stage and a curtain. It has like it's really cool. I'll link it for you below so you can check it out. All right, then I am taking this cute little gnome all cracked up and stamping the sentiment Happy Easter. And while I had this out, I was like, oh my gosh, that little chick is so cute. And so that inspired me to stamp the little chick to go on the card too, which totally inspired me to make card number 2 for this video. So we'll get into that. But I'm going to die cut out that embossed saying. I used some white powder on some bright green paper. Now the green wasn't the exact right color to match my background. It was quite neon. So I just took some of that parrot ink and went over the top, and my embossing will resist the ink. So I really was able to create a piece that matched my background. So I was happy about that. So this stamp set has a chick, and then the Spring in My Step gnome stamp set also has a chick. So I decided to go ahead and use the two of them and add something a little cute to this card. And to be honest with you, I think these chicks totally make this card. I think it's fun already, but this element of cuteness on top just completes the look. I love it. So here you can see the markers I'm using to color up these little chicks. Very simple coloring. They're little, but they're just darling. And I love that they have pink cheeks. So there's my markers. You can see them. And I did do some white gel pen accents on them and then die cut them out. And now let's put the rest of it together. So first I have my vellum piece I'm putting at the bottom. Now I normally probably wouldn't have put a vellum piece at the bottom, but there was a little tiny like rip in the paper from me removing the other thing that was on this card, so it was my way of hiding that, and it worked beautifully. So I added the little chick right next to Happy Easter, and then this one is sitting, so I had him sit on top of those little eggs, and oh my goodness, I love it so much. So everything is stuck down and in place, and that completes my first card. The whole entire premise of this card was to do the checkered background with the stamping. So I'm going to do another checkered background with stamping for my second card. So here you can see I'm adding that stencil, and this is a bigger piece of paper. This is a 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 panel that I'm going to use to make an A7 sized card. So I'm going to have a gap there at the bottom. Now I could have just moved my stencil down and stenciled some more, but I'm going to create my scene at the bottom, so it's not going to matter that the stencil doesn't go all the way to the bottom of this panel. So I am using some saltwater taffy, that was the first color, and abandoned coral on top of this light pink cardstock. I love doing these backgrounds on colored paper with the checkers. Oh, it's like you have 3 colors in one, and I just think it looks so fun. So I did another sprayed background there. I'm going to use those someday, somehow. Stay tuned. All right, so I'm taking out the flower from A Spring in My Step. I'm using now my Distress ink, and the background was done with Distress Oxide ink. So I'm going to use that one to stamp the flower and fill in the holes, but I just had a lot of fun thinking about all the things you could stamp on this checkered background, like a little snowflake, a little candy cane, those type of things for Christmas. Stars would be fun. So you can just pull out your stamp sets and look at the little stamps that you have and see how you could use them to fill in the gaps on this checkered background. All right, bringing in another new stamp set. This is the Layered Lawn stamp set, and it is super cool because you can stamp all 4 of these pieces of lawn on top of each other. If you missed that, I show you how to do it in my Chocolate Bunny in a Box card. I will link it for you below if you missed it, as well as my other videos I've been doing this week showing off the new March release at Trinity Stamps. So I stamped 3 layers of grass. I only am going to put 2 on my card. I just couldn't decide which one I wanted for the background. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3, and I'll just save the one I don't use in the packaging, and I'll be ready to go for my next card. All right, so you can see there's a die to cut out every single row of grass in this set. And then there's a 5th die that actually die cuts out the grass if you layer all 4 of those layers of grass by stamping them together. Then you have a die to cut that out. It's very cool. All right, so I have the 2 stamp sets you've already seen, but here's a 3rd Gnome stamp set, Gnome Bunny. I'm totally using this one for my scene and bringing all 3 of the chicks. So there's a chick in the Gnome Bunny that is made to look like the gnome is holding it in its hands. So you can stamp it right on top of his beard, and he's holding the bunny. And there's also one that looks like he's holding an egg. So it's just so fun. All right, so I'm going to Copic color all the things. I'm using some cool grays for his hat, his beard, and his shoes. So he's going to be very monochromatic, but you could totally play with this and give him like a brown little beard, up maybe a pink hat, you know, and make him a lot more colorful. This is just the look I was going for today because there's so many colors on this card. I didn't want it to just be overwhelming. So yeah, C2 is lightening out all that C4 I added, blending it out, making just a little bit softer look and adding a lot of shadow around where he's holding that chick. Now it's going to look more like what it's supposed to look like once it gets colored, because you'll be able to see the contrast between his hands and the little chick he's holding. I added a little pink to the center of the ears. This is like a gnome hat, but they tied it so it looks like bunny ears, and I think it's darling. All right, for his face, I have E02, and I'm only using one color. I'm just really coloring darkly in the center of his nose, and then really lightly around the edge. And doing the same thing on the cheeks, really dark next to the hat, and a really light layer at the bottom of the cheek. And then for the fingers, I'm using the same exact color and really going over the bottom part of the fingers more to add a little bit of a shadow. Onto the shoes, I'm using C8, C6, and C4. So also in the cool gray family, and that is just going to help them not stand out too much, but have a darker color to them. And he is just cute, no matter what color you color him. All right, so I use the same colors I used to color the chicks in the first card on the second card, and I am just gonna color out these eggs and use the colors that you see right there. And it's just really fun. This egg, I only colored 2 colors, so there's a lot more like ink blending. But on the egg with the details, I had so much fun coloring that out, and I didn't do hardly any ink blending on that one, just straight coloring. All right, then it's time to add my gel pen highlights, some dots and lines to bring everything to life and give it a nice look of shine, plus a few little freckles on the gnome's cheeks. Now there is dies to cut out all of these things. You know, that's how Trinity Stamps rolls. I love it. So I'll die cut out everything and then just kind of lay it in place, because I'm going to take this big Easter die set and die cut an Easter window from my card. I was quite nervous about this because I was so in love with that background. What if I hated this? Very stressful. But I'm going to pop out and save the fallout pieces from the A, the S, and the E, and I'm going to glue those back into place. You'll see how it comes together with my shaker. But this set has a layer for the word Easter that I die cut, as you can see here, and there's also a plate so you can hot foil the word Easter, and then you can match it with our Simply Sentimental Happy. All right, so here I'm adding those pieces after I glued a window sheet onto the back of the word Easter so that I can create a little bit of a shaker look with this word. And now it's complete with all those pieces. So all I need to do is take some foam tape and go all the way around the word Easter, making sure the ends of the foam tape touch, because we don't want any of our little shaker bits to escape. So that's what I'm doing here. And I have a large panel because this is 5 by 7. So I have to put more foam adhesive everywhere, so it's not a floppy card. But I have some bitty charm embellishments here. They're like iridescent and kind of a translucent look, all different colors, stars, hearts, little circles, just a really fun mix. Great for St. Patrick's Day cards too. It's a newer release, and I will link it for you below. And there I just covered it up with another window sheet, so it's going to be easy for me to lay down on my card later. my card base. So now we're going to do that, glue it right down to my 5x7 card. I removed the backing on all the foam tape, but added a little glue where the foam tape was covered up by that window sheet, and then my card is ready to be built. So I'm going to add my first layer of grass. I'm just laying the second layer there so I can see how I want to tuck in all the things, and then I'll later glue that down. But I just glued all the things in place just like that, and I love how that little scene came together. All right, there's a little gap between the back layer of grass and the front layer of grass. So I smushed my ink pad down onto my mat, and I'm using a clear Tombow marker, and I just kind of colored in a little bit of green. So on those couple spots where the grass is higher in the back than the front, it looks green there. All right, so I'm bringing back that cute little chick stamp set. Well, it's a gnome stamp set, all cracked up. And I'm going to stamp Hey Chick and Happy Easter. And those are going to go on the front of my card after I die cut them with the coordinating dies. And so I'm going to use the full sentiment, Hey Chick, but I want to cut off the word Easter because I already have that on my card. So I'll just fussy cut those apart, and then we can glue those in place. All right, so I laid it out where I liked it first, then I glued it down, and then I can rest easy that I've got nice spacing. It's fairly centered, you know, it's practically perfect, but it's handmade, so it's okay if it's not. And then on the inside, nobody loves you like I do. Gnome-buddy loves you like I do. And stamping that with parrot ink as well on the inside of this card. So to get a nice impression, I make sure I hold my stamp pad down onto my stamp a little bit longer than I normally would. And then I hold my stamp down onto my paper a little bit longer than I normally would. And I get a really good impression the first time. So there is my card with the checkered background stamped with flowers. It makes me so happy. It's so, so darling. So there are my Easter cards with the checkered backgrounds. I hope you enjoyed it, and of course I will have all the Trinity Stamps products linked for you below so you can run and check those out. This new release is so popular. Some of the things sold out right away, but they have been reordered. They are coming. They will be there very soon. So if you see something you like, it says sold out, just click to add your name to the list and you'll be notified as soon as it comes in, which will be very soon. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want more inspiration from Trinity Stamps, we're also on Instagram and Facebook. You can find us there for lots more fun things, and I will see you next Saturday with a new video right here. Happy stamping! Bye!